Well, today we've veered off the beaten track again, and we're not talking about radios or any other late 20th century hardware. We're talking about late 20th century software. And the reason I'm talking about this is I just wanted to mention a program which I got accidentally reminded about the other day. And this is one that's been bugging me for 20 years, really, because I can't find a program to replace it in the modern world. And as you can see, I'm running it in an emulator of an old MS-DOS computer. It's a program called PC Outline, and before I encountered it, I never regarded computers as instruments for personal productivity. I'd always thought of them as basically industrial machines of some sort or another, whether they were physically controlling things or gathering or processing large amounts of data. And this program, to me, was one of the most useful programs I'd ever encountered. And what does it do? It's basically just allows you to make lists. Now, I make a lot of lists of things to do, and obviously if you've seen a few of the videos on this channel, you'll know that the lists of things that have actually been done is probably smaller, and we wouldn't need a computer to hold those. But PC Outline was very good at this, and the reason it was good at it was because all the features in it were dedicated to organising hierarchical lists. If you wanted to move stuff around, move it to a different level, things like that, it was all built in. There were hotkeys for doing it. You could press F1 and you could get a list of keys and all the hotkeys, and eventually you'd learn these things. All these things would become second nature to you. And even picking it up again after, in order to do this video, I had to sort of relearn it a little bit, but it only took me about an hour or so, and I was back in the 1990s, which for me is a forward shift in my normal era. One of the two things which might confuse people, I suppose, are this grey plus and grey minus. If you haven't got a grey plus or a grey minus key on your keyboard, I'll just show you a picture here of a keyboard from the probably late 80s, early 90s. And as you can see, the plus and minus in the keypad are coloured grey, whereas the rest of it is coloured in a sort of creamy white. And it was always assumed that keyboards would never change colour. I also like the bit where they tell you to press the key home once and then press it twice and then press it thrice. I love the language there. The good thing about the interface was that you could use it in various ways. There were lots of different ways into the menu. So if you're the sort of person who likes to do Alt-O for outline, that works. So you can press the insert key, which also sticks you into the menu bar. You can also see these hotkeys are also echoed on the menu, so eventually you'll learn what those are. You can have multiple windows open, which you sort of saw a bit of here. So I can have all my windows here and I can switch between them. I've got these little, the hotkeys allow you to toggle what's visible and what's not. Also, you can add text to an entry as well. So if I just go back to my one I was using here. So if I wanted to add some text to something, I can just start typing here. And that wraps properly, and that hasn't actually got a heading number, but it is connected with it. So if I move this around, then the text moves with it. Of course, I've completely messed up my script for today now, haven't I? I should have kept a copy of it. Well, that's we've covered what's good about it, that it's quick, it's easy to use, it does one thing and it does it properly. What's bad about it then? Well, you can't get it now. And the registered copies, if I just quit out of this for a moment and restart it. Now you can see it was distributed as shareware, and in those days very few people had access to the internet to download things. The way these things were distributed was by sticking a floppy disk to the front of computer magazines and you get it from there. And then the idea was that if you used it for more than 30 days you were supposed to be honest and pay the company some money. Let's go back in time and see how much you'd have had to actually pay. And it's quite a lot, I think you'll agree. 225 quid we're talking about here. That's not an insignificant sum of money, and we're talking also about 1988. If you scale that up for inflation, it's about 650 quid. That's as much as you pay for a whole phone now. So I don't think many people would pay this just for a piece of personal productivity software. Of course, a lot of them were bought by companies, so you used it for work, and therefore, you didn't see the real cost of it. And The things you got for it, well, you got the latest manual. Well, if you've watched this channel at all, you'll know I only resort to reading manuals about any piece of equipment when I get to. I've exhausted all other possible options. Free telephone support for a year. Well, again, the sort of telephone support I've ever had for software, you've been better off resorting to prayer, I think. Updates at a reduced fee. That's very generous when I've paid you that sort of money that you still want to charge me a fee for updates. I think I'll pass on that one. 10% of commissions on registration for your copy. Well, I haven't got any mates, so there'll be no benefit for that from me. The only good thing about registering it is if you had a registered copy, it had European keyboard drivers, so you didn't have this thing where you pressed double quote and ended up with an @ sign, and then you couldn't find out how to get a pound or a hash. But then we hadn't polluted our digital world with the evils of hashtags in those days. And I think really that was a downfall of it. It was just too expensive, and they couldn't really have made much money out of it. In the end, it did for a while get bundled with another piece of software, which I'm going to look at now. Now, this piece of software is called Wordstar, and it was a very popular word processor at the time. Now, I'm still in the PC outline directory. Let's get back to the right place. And it has a similar sort of layout. It's a good bedfellow for PC Outline in a way, I think, because you've got the menus, you've got the hotkeys, and if you open something up, you can see it's very fast to scroll through it. You don't get the sort of fonts and things that you get in a modern word processor. So you might think, well, you know, it's not something you could use nowadays. In fact, George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones and writes all his other stuff using this. And he cites exactly the same reason for doing it that I have here for wanting things like PC Outline, that the thing does one job and does it properly. But I have to say that there are things that you can see even now. If you look at the other menu, you can see things are creeping in that are not strictly word processing. You can do math with it, or if you're on this side of the Atlantic, you can even do maths with it. And it seems that this sort of software, where you buy something to do a particular job and then you buy another program to do another job, that's about as up to date as saying what a wonderful city London is. We seem to have gone from that through to the Microsoft Office era of bundling all the different programs in one suite and then making you rent them. And then you get to the situation now where you've got Microsoft Teams, which probably the splash screen of that takes up as much space as the whole program for Wordstar or PC Outline, and that does lots of different things and doesn't really do any of them very well or any better than the things that it replaced. Is there a solution to this? Not really, I don't think. I still use outlining. I don't use it in PC Outline anymore because I can't really be bothered running a DOS emulator for it. I'll show you what I do use. So I use Vim, which is a enhancement of the standard Unix text editor VI, and that does have some facilities for outlining built into it. It's not quite as flexible as PC Outline, but I'm sort of used to it now, and it's fairly quick. It can do a few extra things that PC Outline can't, but most of the things it was far easier to do it the old way, I think. And the other thing is that Vim is a difficult program to learn. It's a complete beast, and I've learned it because it was part of my job to learn it many years ago. I wouldn't recommend somebody starting up and learning all the arcane keystrokes of this piece of software just to do this. It's true you can do similar things in Word. Word has an outline mode, and OneNote does sort of outlining stuff, but I just find those things too mouse driven and too clunky, really, and too slow. So I don't really have any expectation that the old days are coming back. I thought I'd just like to share this trip down memory lane with you. I apologise to those people who were hoping for a video about radios this week. One will definitely be coming up next week. While I'm here, I will mention that there's an excellent video that came out this week from my mate Vince, which is a channel which I'm sure you've seen if you see this channel on a regular basis. But if you haven't, you should definitely have a look. He's looking at a Grundig table radio from the 1960s, and in a few weeks I'm going to look at one, a very similar model from a bit later, from the 1970s. So anyway, for this week, if you want to know about radios, you can check that channel out and come back here when I'm doing something that's more on track. Thanks for watching.